Takeaway Chinese, where you can take some Chinese away and experience progress day by day. Takeaway Chinese, we will promise you a difference.
Hello everybody, welcome to Takeaway Chinese. Today we're doing a special episode where I have a new friend joining today's show. I have our special guest, Wu Hang, and he is currently teaching Chinese on top of some other projects and other subjects in the United Kingdom. Welcome to the show, Wu Hang.
Hello, everyone.
So, can you give us a bit of introduction of yourself? Where are you, to be more precise, what you do regarding Chinese teaching and regarding your career, and more importantly, what inspired you to become a Chinese teacher in the United Kingdom?
Yeah, I had been teaching English to the Chinese students for a couple of years. And after that, I felt like I want to improve my English a little bit further. So I applied for a master's year 2015 to 2016. While I was doing my master's year, I found that people had a lot of misunderstanding of China. All the jokes are made. To be honest, some of them can be polite. Some of them can make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. So I started basically telling them this is not true. All the things you hear about China is wrong. So I started actually telling them more and more about Chinese culture. After graduating from my master's, I flew back to China because I really missed my home. And after 3 years of working there, teaching English in Chinese institutes, that helped students to study abroad. I felt like I had been doing that for too long and I wanted a career exchange. So I applied for the PGCE training here in UCL. And got my position and started my training. After years teacher training, I got a job in my current town, Reading, and I started teaching Mandarin in Reading School.
Oh, that is a cool experience. Comparing teaching English to Chinese students and teaching Chinese to English students, are there any differences and similarities?
A lot of differences, way more different than I thought it would be, to be honest. Because when I first started teaching English, I was always teaching relatively advanced English because I taught in Chinese Language Institute. So most of the students there, they were studying TOEFL, IELTS. Basically, they wanted to study abroad already. So they had a really strong foundation of English. However, when I started teaching Mandarin here, it is so difficult for me to start because I don't know where to start. Should I start with pinyin? Should I start with the characters? Should I start teaching this sentence or that sentence? What do they know? What do they not know? So you have to build up a whole structure for them. When I first started teaching here, I struggled a little bit.
So besides that, is there any funny story you've encountered in your teaching experience? Because for me, we teach Chinese and my online friends call me Chinese teacher, but I didn't have the experience of having a real online or offline course, one-on-one course with any student. So I do have a lot of quote unquote students or friends online who learn or pick up a little bit Chinese from me. And my way of so-called teaching is more like giving them very specific language points. So it can be certain expressions we share. It can be language structures. It can be even a grammar point. We would do that, but it's not easy to be systematic with one student or a group of students or a class of students the way that you teach. So any experience that relates to one student that you feel very worth mentioning or very impressionable? Any fun stories you have?
I think the thing is right now with the widespread of different Chinese social media, such as like some of my students actually use WeChat more than their own communication software. Yeah, it's very interesting because social media is always something that gives them a place to hide from their parents, let's say. So that is why so many people migrated from Facebook to Instagram. Because of Facebook, they have so many family members following them, so they can't really say anything safely, Now they have WeChat, so they're actually really free to say whatever they like there, and they feel safe. I think the fact that they're actually using all sorts of resources is really helping them to understand Chinese culture. Because, of course, when they're on WeChat, they're going to go through those short videos of Chinese people talking about life. They're always coming to me and ask me, what's going on there in this video? Because, of course, they wouldn't understand entirely, but they would like to give a guess. I've got students using Xiaohongshu at least once or twice a week, just going through, scrolling down all the posts. Because of this enthusiasm, they are eager to learn a little bit more without me having to push them.
Just to give a little bit background, what are age group of your students in majority? How old are they?
I teach students for the UK year 7 to 11. So technically, starting from 11 years old to 15, 16.
Young teenagers. In the meantime, since you're teaching really young kids, my feeling is that learning a language in your teenage years would be totally different when you're learning as an adult. Because as an adult, definitely you understand the logic of the language, you understand the mentality of the people speaking the language a bit better because of your life experience. And probably, like you said, you've already learned one language, one foreign language, already had experience. But learning as a teenager, you have better memory. And you would use it, or you would be more open to the possibility of a different way of thinking. So in your experience, teaching teenagers, what are the biggest challenges as well as the most rewarding moments of teaching teenagers Chinese?
I'm going to use a very, very interesting word that I think in Mandarin we do have the word. However, in English we don't have the word. So that really, I think that is the word that makes me think it's not just language. It is having that language that's changing people's way of thinking. In China, I think it is quite easy for the teachers telling the students, 别抬杠. And the student knew exactly what the teacher is asking for. For example, the teacher made a language loophole. Let's say, stop messing around in your seat. Or do not stand up. Some students may be still misbehaving in the seat. However, they're not standing up. So when the teacher tells them off, they say, but miss, I'm not standing up. So I'm not standing up. I'm still in my seat. The Chinese teacher will simply say, 别抬杠, because you know what you're saying. You know what I mean. You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing is wrong. You're just saying for the sake of saying. So I think that is probably the best translation I can find in English that can explain what 抬杠 means. I think in my teaching, especially probably I think in year 8, I started teaching this word already. Because I think it is quite important for them to learn. In the English speaking environment, a lot of students actually tend to 抬杠 quite a lot. I think it is part of their culture because it is not just like nature of doing this. It is also highly, let's say, immersed into their life in the future when they grow up even. So not only do I teach those students about the word, like in younger year groups, but also I'm a sixth form tutor. So I have year 12 and year 13 students. I teach them that word as well to show them how Chinese way of thinking is very different from the Western way. The Western way of thinking is always, if I can win in the words, I win. However, the Chinese way of thinking is always, we need to be more practical. Whatever you win in this debate does not mean that you're actually winning in reality. We care about what's in real life. They care about, I won this debate. I am successful here. This particular win is sometimes a milestone of my career. However, what's following the debate is not something they care too much about anymore. So I kept telling the students, this is not going to help you in the future because winning in words is not going to help you win in reality. It's not going to change. So when I'm teaching, sometimes when students do that, I simply just say, 别抬杠. And the student will just quiet down.
Yeah, and this mentality goes way back. Even in traditional Chinese learnings, in traditional Chinese school of thoughts, people say if this person is really good at debating, it's not necessarily a good thing. According to ancient Chinese philosophy, you are not supposed to be that good with words because being that good with words can sometimes mean that you are allocating your wisdom, your computing power into talking instead of thinking about what to do. So yes, like you said, it is a different type of mentality and it's very important to share the mentality while you're also sharing the language. Besides that, I'm curious because some of my foreign friends as well as many friends online say that when they started learning Chinese, they still learn the old Chinese, the out-of-date Chinese. Like, of course, 马马虎虎 would be one of the that's caught, but it's no longer that common. So what are some phrases or some expressions you usually taught your student in the beginning stage besides 别抬杠? What are some things you want them to learn as a, fun little language point so they get the fun, they can use it in daily life, even with their Chinese friends online, and also you find interesting and, also catchy in today's day and age?
To be honest, I teach them exclusively whenever we're teaching something new. There's one word that I can remember when I taught them about the word watermelon, 西瓜. I don't usually teach them one word. I separate the characters and then I start to extend the characters. In Chinese, we say 我主词. So when I taught them 西瓜, I also taught them the other word 吃瓜. They loved it because in English, they have a different way of saying that. They say, I opened a bag of popcorn. Oh. So basically, I'm enjoying the show while I'm eating the popcorn. So I connect these two, and then I say, Chinese people start to 吃瓜 is like you opening a bag of popcorn. You can't wait for the show to start, and you know that's irrelevant to you. It's just exciting to see. So, yeah, I think there are a lot of words like that in reality. And some of my students, if they can remember, because those are not the type of keywords I would repeat and invite them back into our teaching. It's more of a fun thing to learn. However, if my students have a really good memory, sometimes when they see that, oh, sir, have you started 吃瓜 about this yet? They would ask questions like this.
That is so funny. And I love it because when you share a language with others, teach a language with others, you want them to use it. You want them to be able to get engaged in the conversation of people who are actually using the language. So I don't find it like meaningless or not important. I find it quite interesting. And maybe those are the words that will keep them in your classroom. Well, maybe mandatory to keep them in your classroom, but these words are the entertaining part. And I'd like to share a little bit of those in some of our content on Learn Chinese Facebook page as well.
No problem.
So how about some Chinese stories? Do you teach your students Chinese stories? Because we also have a podcast called Chinese Folktales. It's entirely in English, and it's a good way to learn about the history and culture and even mentality of Chinese-speaking people. So do you talk about stories or share ancient stories or fairy tales or folk tales in your classroom as well?
I do share a lot of those. However, usually not for the sake of learning language anymore, simply because when we're doing those, our language is usually not strong enough to understand every bit of that phrase we say 成语 yet. For example, we learn about, let's just say 瓜. So I also teach them the Chinese proverb of 瓜田李下. So you don't bend down and tie your shoes when you're in the melon field, and when you're below a plum tree, you do not actually fix your hair. Simply, you do not do something suspicious simply to get attention and then deny that this is what I'm doing. Because a lot of students really like to do that. So as I said, it's always part of the experience that inspired me to do that. For example, our school strictly forbids students to use their phones without permission in lessons. So some of my students, what they really like to do is to take out a calculator and pretend that they're using their phone in the way of, playing like that. And when you approach them, they would say, but this is a calculator, it's not a phone. They just want your attention. And then they want to prove you that you're wrong.
Well, this time, you can buy some calculators and give them to them as their, Christmas gift, and teach them the Chinese idiom 釜底抽薪. For those who do not really understand what 釜底抽薪 means, you can leave a comment in the comment area and let's guess whether or not you guessed the idiom right. But continue with your story. I think I get what you mean.
Yeah, I think that is also something what I explained before about 抬杠. I think that is exactly what they like to do. They like to win in the words. So I teach them the phrase 瓜田李下. So I said in China, we don't even need anything else to further explain why this is not okay. After learning this word, you will know that you have done something wrong. Also, sometimes I teach them something with similar meanings like 画蛇添足, like 掩耳盗铃. Those were exactly the type of things we learned in primary school. I think we didn't realize how much it affects our mentality, our philosophy of understanding the world. So I would like my students actually to be able to understand that part of Chinese. It's not just language. It is also our philosophy, let's say. Do not do something extra to make things irrelevant. Do not pretend that you're not doing something wrong by covering your ears. So I think these are exactly the type of stories I would like to tell my students. I usually will need to teach it by myself, and we also have training teachers here. I sometimes encourage them to teach stories like that. However, it would be even easier. I don't know if you have this type of material on your website. If it would be easier if I can just tell them, oh, there's this good resource. You can go and watch this story, and you know exactly
definitely. Yeah. We have a lot of those things. I think we've even shared expressions about certain type of trendy words that I personally didn't understand before teaching, because it's just so among the younger generation, and I no longer talk like that. But it's important for younger kids to be able to talk to each other in each other's language. So yes, I will send you the link. And let's go back a little bit to the language itself, because when teaching Chinese, when talking about learning Chinese, many people would say, oh, my biggest struggle would be the 4 or 5 tones of the Chinese language. Some others say, oh, my biggest struggle is that the Chinese characters are just so hard. It's totally a different type of system. The pictographic language just feels like every little character is a tiny little picture. I have to remember all of them. Yeah. Besides those ones. So my first question is, do you have any secret weapon to overcome those challenges, to solve these 2 major problems that I encounter? Because my way is always saying, oh, you just have to remember them. You just have to learn the first 300 to 500 characters, and then you put them together like Lego pieces, and it's getting easier. And also for the tone thing, if you can remember the tone, great. If you cannot remember the tone, try to use longer and longer sentences, because Chinese is a high context language, and we'll be able to understand you if you use 2-syllable words and 4-syllable words, or 4 character words instead of just 1 word. And that will be very confusing. I can only say these things, but do you have any other secret weapon?
Yeah, about tones. First of all, I think a lot of artists misunderstood the 3rd tone. Because when they do the 3rd tone, what they like to do is always to do this. They say, wo. They like to say that. So they go down and then go up. However, the 3rd tone is usually not a very wavy tone that you have to wo. No one says that in Mandarin. So I told them the first tone is the high pitch tone. And then the 3rd tone is low pitch tone. So when you say 我, when you say 你好, you actually lower your tone quite drastically. So for example, when we say 我叫, you can clearly tell that 我 is a lower.
Yeah, lower pitch.
And then 笑 is you raise your tone and drop it. So 我叫. So it is quite easy for you to master the 3rd tone if you realize this difference, rather than, doing this wavy thing. Because
you're saying that on my clothes.
Yeah, I actually came across with some video, and that actually was the one teaching us about the tones. I think this is the most useful thing for us to know. The 3rd tone is not usually wavy, it's just a lower tone. I think that's my key thing that I correct my students. However, even if they cannot remember the tones, what I tell them is I think you said speaking longer sentences. I tell them, this is also from a friend of mine who learned Mandarin in China. He said, whenever I feel like I cannot be understood by Chinese, instead of slowing down, you say it 1.5 times faster. Actually, people will start to ignore your tones.
Oh. Ooh, I like your tips. How about Chinese characters?
Chinese characters is always something I don't know how to explain sometimes. When I first started teaching, what I always do is to show them exactly why we put it that way. I'm going to give you an example of the character shou, skinny. When I taught them, I literally drew the ribs and then drew a part of the skeleton and then the legs. So it does look like the character shou, right? Because here with 2 strings there. So it does look like the person sharing the strings and their ribs. So basically, it is suggesting that this person is so skinny. People can see the ribs already. So using this type of technique, it will help the students. They will start to remember at least the basic shape of the character. what I always encourage them is to not be afraid of making those mistakes. If you miss a stroke, it's not the end of the world. People will be able to understand you. So I think this is the biggest difficulty of the students who are learning Mandarin, because they tend to get scared away by those drawings. However, we encourage them to use more and more drawings. They sometimes can come up with very creative ways themselves. I do have a lot of colleagues who say they start teaching Chinese characters by teaching the stroke order, teaching the name of the strokes, 横竖撇. I was like, that's totally unnecessary for me. If a student writes 横 or 竖 the other way around, from right to left, from bottom to top, doesn't bother me. If a student writes the hand radical, 提手旁, and the animal radical, 反选旁, in similar ways, does not bother me. As long as they're recognizable, it's fine. Because that is exactly what's in the GCSE mark scheme as well. Their marking scheme is basically based on recognizability. If they can recognize the character, it's fine. You don't need to be that accurate, because that will simply scare people away. So my suggestion is to use your best imagination.
Well, it also has something to do with the stage you're in where you're learning. The very initial stage, of course, you can draw the characters instead of writing them. One of my friends just said that the Chinese character Jing from Peking, Beijing, from Beijing, Jing looks like a octopus.
It does, yeah.
Right? But again, that is the initial stage. You can create your own way to remember the characters. But moving on, I also have friends who are really good at Chinese already, and their calligraphy is even better than their speaking. So if you're really serious about this, about Chinese learning, and you're in your, 5th year or even 9th year, do not go easy on yourself. Write a horizontal line from left to right. Don't go the other way around. Totally agree with you. It's a matter of allowing people to fall in love with Chinese first, then go deeper into the learning process. Definitely.
I do encourage them also. Eventually, we'll need to learn the correct way, because writing the stroke orders in the right way will allow you to be able to write Chinese characters on the phone. If you write it in the wrong way, the phone will recognize it.
Very important and also very up to date to kind of read. Yeah. Yes, definitely. So, for those who are, being still a little bit intimidated by the Chinese language, or still on the fence of whether or not I will jump into the yard of Chinese learning, who are constantly watching our videos and watching our live streams, but do not have enough courage to start learning Chinese. Any suggestions?
I would say you have to force yourself into actually dive into that area, of course. What I usually encourage my students is Chinese language is going to be the most important second language in the world for English native speakers. Because Chinese economy, it is something we can't really avoid talking about. Chinese infrastructure, Chinese food, the cultural influences, you can see the increase in it. So, especially for my students in these years, when they're still 11 years old to 15 years old, when they start to look for jobs, the ability to speak Mandarin is going to be really, really useful for them. Even if you're not seeking jobs like high tech, which China is advancing right now, you're just, let's say, seeking a job in hospitality. It will help you largely in your career, because there will be more and more Chinese travelers in the world. And I believe more and more people will want to fly to China and see everything. And if you want to talk to the local people, you don't necessarily have to speak in fluent Mandarin. You will want to speak a little bit of that. And Chinese people are always I think that is one thing I hear the most about foreigners when they try to speak Mandarin. They always say, if I'm able to speak just ni hao to Chinese, they will be amazed by my language skills. There's, your Chinese is so good. Even by saying just 2 characters.
Say that.
Yeah. So I think the Chinese people are very friendly and welcoming for you to try the language. So there's no excuse not to do it. You need it first, and then you will definitely in the future want to experience it with the local people. I highly doubt that there's any foreigner probably following your channel that's not ever encountered a Chinese in their entire life. There must be an experience there already. So I would suggest is to start small. Don't intimidate yourself by saying, I need to learn this character. I have to learn how to write this character at the beginning. No, you are not going to be able to. Like even the simplest characters, do not let them scare you away, because what's important is you're trying. You're doing a little bit more bit by bit. I think that's my suggestion. Start small. Yeah.
If that is not enough to encourage you to start Chinese, I don't know what could. Well, maybe just one more thing. Come to China, because we have the free policy. You can just stay here for around 10 days without any kind of document. Just come here, enjoy the atmosphere, talk to local people. Maybe you'll be so fascinated by just one cultural point that is good enough, that is just enough for you to start learning the language. And that brings us to the end of today's Takeaway Chinese. I'm Yu Hongli, and thank you so much, Wu Hang, for joining today's show. I think we've shared a lot of very fun experiences, teacher to teacher, fake teacher to real teacher, and Chinese learning, and talking about how the Chinese language is much more than the Chinese language. And learning the Chinese language can actually open a door to a whole new world to all of you who are interested in this amazing culture, society, and country. And thank you so much for listening. For more episodes of our show, you can visit our website at radio.cgtn.com and go to the column podcast. You can also listen to the show and read the script there. Wherever you listen to your podcast, just search for Takeaway Chinese. And don't forget to leave your questions, comments, and ratings. 感谢收听，我们下次再见，拜拜 guys.
Bye.